Unlock the power of AI in marketing with our new series, AI Agent. Dive into the world of SaaS tools, discover how marketing pros deploy bots, and explore the best use cases for AI in your marketing strategy. Only on Marketing in the Age of AI podcast with Emanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. Looking forward to this episode where we're going to be getting into a deep dive into some of the LLM activity that's happened recently, and get a take from Robert Douglas on what is happening in the world of agents. And Robert is a seasoned software startup executive with over 20 years of experience in funding and scaling companies, specializing in areas like CMS, e-com, and decentralization, and has developed innovative software prototypes in AI and data collection. And Robert, thank you so much for taking some time today to have a conversation with me.
Hi, Emanuel. Thank you.
And
Pleasure to be here.
You're calling in from Germany today. How in the heck did you end up in Bonn, Germany?
Oh, it had a lot to do with music and love.
Well, now that's a whole other podcast we got to do on that one, because that sounds interesting. What instrument do you play?
I used to play the French horn, but I really stopped doing that when I changed my career to be more in IT and computer programming. But now I play piano as
Very
kind of
nice.
a hobbyist.
Well, I think music is one of the great joys of being a human. So you and I are aligned there.
I see the guitar
That's
peeking
right.
out over your
Yeah,
shoulder.
I think I grew up playing the saxophone and have been a guitar hobbyist for a while. So it's a nice challenge for sure. Well, Robert, let's see. Talk to me a little bit about what you're doing at Open Strategy Partners, and what you're doing with marketing for other technologists and the technology that you're helping to create.
Yeah, pleased to do that. Open Strategy Partners is a content marketing agency based in Cologne, Germany. They focus on the strategic elements of content marketing as well as the operational elements of content marketing. And they focus as well on B2B customers, also with open source exposure. So an ideal client for Open Strategy Partners is somebody that deals with software, B2B software, and has exposure to open source projects. Sometimes we even work directly with open source projects like the Drupal Association or the Typo 3 Association. And my role at the company is entrepreneur in residence, meaning I do some of the work for clients, but then I also look around and say, how could we build interesting tools that would make that work better, or give our clients more value? Because I come with a hacker mentality and have done a lot of startups. So my work with Open Strategy Partners has really been to elevate the way that they do their work.
Awesome.
By providing
Well, that
tools.
Sounds like a fascinating role, and so you're kind of like the product development guy for the agency, if I'm going to put it in some slang.
Yeah. I got to pick my title, so it turned out fancy schmancy. But yeah, that's another way of putting it.
That's a cool space to be in, because you get to take I would imagine, a 1 to 3 year view of things, and then start getting the agency dialed in to be on track for that. So what in this agent space and agentification space, what are you working on that you can talk about?
Yeah, I'm really happy to tell you about something pretty new. In November, a company called Anthropic released something called the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. Now, that doesn't say anything to anybody in most cases. So let me
Right.
break that down a little bit and tell you what it's all about. So Anthropic is a company that's like OpenAI. They have large language models like ChatGPT, only theirs is called Claude. And
Right.
some of the marketers out there will know Claude because Claude is very good at writing texts, especially marketing texts that have a very human feel to them, very empathetic. So Claude didn't have any ability to do things like search the web or write files onto your computer or execute code or really crazy things like talk to Ahrefs and get keywords for you and then update your WordPress blog
Right.
until November, that is. And then in November, Anthropic released something called the Model Context Protocol. Now, what do those three words mean? Model, large language model. Context, that's basically the prompt and all of the stuff that you put into a chat to get a result. And a protocol is something that anybody can use. It's a specification for how something's supposed to work. So they basically came out and said, hey, we know how to do this thing. We're going to make a protocol for it. And the thing that they knew how to do or fix was give language models tools that they can
Nice.
use.
Yeah.
Any tools to any language models. And they actually solved an industry-wide problem that language models up until now, they kind of make you do a lot of work. You talk to them and you coax some texts out of them or maybe some images, and then you copy and paste things everywhere,
Right.
right? And this fixes that. Now they can do the work for you directly on the systems where you're working.
Nice.
Query your databases, update your website, send your emails, tweet, whatever. And it's so cool. And when it came out in November, I was super excited and immediately started building new stuff on top of it for Open Strategy partners.
Now, is this something that's accessible to a guy like me that is a marketing guy who's learning about technology versus a coder who's doing marketing? So explain that to me.
Yeah, and that is such a good question because as a new protocol, the tools in the space are a little underdeveloped. And even if you have, say, Claude Desktop, which is the downloadable program version of using Claude in the cloud. So you've got Claude Desktop. This is almost like the first prerequisite for using these new tools. And then beyond that, you have to have crazy things like you have to have Python installed.
Okay.
So for a programmer, no big deal.
Right.
For a marketer, that isn't really their home turf.
That's that's where the red lights start for me. Is as soon as Python, okay, I don't have any Pythons on my computer. Yeah.
Exactly. No Pythons allowed, no anacondas, nothing.
Right.
So, but the way it works is that the industry always solves that problem, right?
Sure.
It always brings in new tools that allow people to do the work that they want to do with less and less effort. So I'm here to be the vanguard to tell you what's coming. And if
Nice.
you are a bit brave and want to install Python and maybe Node.js as well, then you can use these tools already.
Yep.
And if not, you're going to be able to use them pretty soon anyway, because they're going to be everywhere. They're going to
Sure.
be everywhere where you use large language models.
Yeah, so that's interesting because at least internally for us, we're using Zap like everybody. We use a service called Make, right? Or that is kind of a tracker and it helps you build these connectors easily. And then, we're using the chatbots and then NAN. So that's kind of our suite of tools. But it sounds like we may be entering into a space where Anthropic will be able to replace some, if not all, of those tools with Claude.
Well, and to be clear, it won't be Anthropic necessarily replacing that, because as a protocol, it means that it can work with any language model. So
Right.
I've tested this with ChatGPT. I've tested this with Mistral from France. You could
Yep.
use it with Grok. You could use it with DeepSeek. So if you've been tracking the evolving space of what language models are out there and what they do, and some of them generate images, you can use them with the DALL-E and Stable Diffusion type of models as well for generating images. You could use it with healthcare specific models. But hey, we're marketers, so let's focus on Claude and ChatGPT because they're really good at writing texts.
For
that
sure.
marketers use.
Yeah. Well, good. And do you have an example or some way that we can see this happening in action?
Yes, I'm glad you asked, and I'm going to show you a demo. And I just want to emphasize how cutting edge this is that you're seeing.
That's
So I'm
awesome.
hanging out on Discords and Slack channels where people are coming in and announcing what they've built in model context protocol because it's exploding and there are
Yeah.
thousands of integrations now. And I woke up this morning and the CEO of a company called Graphlit, Graphlit, came in and said, "Hey, we've integrated Graphlit on MCP." And I was like, I've never heard of that. Big deal. So
Yeah,
I
right.
went over and looked at the Graphlit website and my jaw dropped because it's basically a database where you can throw anything at it. You can throw your audio, your images, your docs, your spreadsheets, your PDFs, crawl websites, and it will let you chat with them and do semantic searching on them. And I was like, whoa, now wait a minute.
Wow.
This would be great to show Emanuel today. So I woke up this
Awesome.
morning, never hearing of Graphlit in my life. And
Yes.
now I'm going to show you a demo of me using Graphlit from Claude Desktop to do something cool that OSP, Open Strategy Partners, has pioneered in the last years.
Wow.
So let's get into it. Let me share my screen.
Sounds good. Love it. I
I'm going
love to be on the cutting edge, even if I can't install anything onto my desktop, but I'm going to see it at least.
Okay, so what we've got here is simply
Let's
Claude
see.
Desktop. There's nothing special about it
Okay.
except that I've installed these MCP tools.
Yeah.
Okay, and you'll see that some of them are from Graphlit. Okay, and Graphlit has a lot of tools. And the cool thing about Model Context Protocol is that now when I chat here with with Claude, it can choose to use those tools whenever it feels like it needs to get the job done. So I've got a bit of a prompt prepared here.
All right.
It's
Let me
very
just put a little context in this. So these are kind of building these really high level custom GPTs essentially, where you're designating all these different areas of information for Claude to go and look at in this. Am I tracking here?
Yeah, and what it can do now that it couldn't do before is it can go and do internet calls. It can use
Right.
all those tools on Make or N8N that you were talking about, or Zap.
Okay.
It can actually, if you configure it to do so, it can actually invoke those tools. So the tools that you're going to see it invoke here are, it's going to, first of all, call out to Graphlit and say, "Hey, Graphlit, please scrape the entire websites of Open Strategy Partners and two of their competitors, Walker Sands and Velocity Partners, who are also content marketing agencies somewhere on Earth.
Yes.
And based on the keywords open source and brand positioning, create a visualization, a competitive positioning visualization to show us where those three companies stand." And it's
Amazing.
actually going to do semantic analysis of the website content. And based on the scores, it's going to say which ones of these three competitors message the strongest on the two vectors, open source versus brand positioning. And oh, wonder, I picked those to be fairly advantageous for Open Strategy.
Well, fair enough. You're a marketing guy.
So what we're going to do when we see this go off is it's going to start thinking. It's going to analyze my request. It's going to look at the tools that it has available to it, and it's going to ask me, can I retrieve sources from the Graphlit server? Yes, please do it.
Yeah.
So it's going to go do a whole bunch of stuff. We don't need to look at that. Now it's going to do the same thing for Walker Sands. And it's analyzing their website content, Velocity Partners. It'll have to do this 6 times to get enough data.
Right. For each, you have 2 requests there, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then it's going to do the brand positioning. So first it did the open source versus brand positioning. Now it's doing the brand positioning. It's going to do that 6 times. and then it's going to collate the data. And the amazing thing about these tools is I told it my intent in a previous prompt, how to visualize this.
Okay. Yep.
And it wrote me a Python script to do the visualization, and then executed the Python script to create the image.
Yeah.
So let's see here if it has done it. Doom, ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom.
Wow.
It created this positioning graph. It's a little messy, like this is overlapping here, there's some overlapping stuff here, but I can actually ask it to correct those things.
Sure.
So this is the type of graph where it's like a Gartner Magic Quadrant, right? Like you
Yep.
want to be up here. So this accesses the brand positioning focus, and actually Walker Sands has a higher focus on brand positioning than Open Strategy Partners. That's something we can improve on our website.
Right.
And this access down here was open source, but it's all covered up with the summary. And Open Strategy Partners actually produces and creates open source materials and open source software that you can download and use, including an MCP server that we built.
Nice.
So it's not surprising that we rank really to the right for open source. And if you combine the two, we are the ones that are in the advantageous high focus quadrant, where the other two would have to try to catch up to us in positioning on these vectors. Now, I could probably find some other vectors where we'd be down here and they'd be up here,
Sure.
to be fair.
Yeah.
But I wanted to give a good demo of how this works. And we actually do this when we do competitive analysis for our customers. And the nice thing is, if we do it now and then we do some content strategy
Sure.
for them, maybe we should offer Velocity partners that we take over their content strategy for open source versus brand positioning. And you can see this moving up over time into the high focus quadrant. So you can actually check your work and show proof of improvement. And this is a little bit different than doing SERP analysis, right? Because with SERP analysis, everybody knows you're very much at the beck and call of Google's algorithm. And if they decide to give you a SERP, you've got this SERP and you clearly did the right thing, but sometimes they don't and you don't know why. Whereas this is basically saying, does the semantic meaning of our websites fulfill a focus on these two things? And it's cool.
Well, I guess you could also build an ICP and have that ICP as an avatar call into and do the site reviews, and then you have a little bit more of a prospect review, right? Versus
you could, yeah. Now, the nice thing about Model Context Protocol is that it doesn't assume what it's going to do in advance. It just has a collection of tools available to the model. I could now equally go in and say, hey, if I gave it access to the CMS that Open Strategy Partners runs on, which in our case is Typo 3, because we're in Germany, I could give it control over our website and say, okay, now based on this analysis that you did, let's get a better focus on these things. And it would go, make suggestions on the content, and it could actually update the content and then rerun the analysis. So it's very extemporaneous in its usage pattern. You tell it what you want, it figures out how to do it for you.
Yeah.
And this is different than setting up workflows on N8N, for example, or Zaps.
Right.
Those are like, I give you a very specific input and you give me a very specific output, and I can do that over and over and over and over and over again. Where this is, I tell you anything I want and you figure out how to do it for me.
Which is the beginning of the agentification that we're getting into, right? Versus
really is.
Having a 4-year-old that you're telling to do something. It's actually thinking and using logic and finding its tools and then bringing back an outcome for you.
Yeah, we've gone from the 4-year-old level to the college intern level,
which is pretty powerful, and it's pretty phenomenal to witness. And I share your excitement about this. One question, because this is a work product that you do produce for your clients, how much time is saved now that you have this set up in the MCP versus how you were doing it before?
Well, now including the crawling the website, which takes maybe 5 minutes. So if I put the list of competitors in and wait the 5 or 10 minutes for them to crawl the websites, then you saw how fast I got that image.
Yeah.
It was with me yabbing my mouth off. It took 3 minutes.
Right.
If
Yeah.
I just push the button, then they just come out, brum, 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 brum. So typically we would like pick a lot of dichotomies where we feel you learn about the product positioning of the customer, like cost savings versus opportunities,
Sure.
or friendly versus authoritative. And
Yeah.
you can pick almost any two semantic concepts that you want and get such a graph from that, because we're not just doing keyword matching, we're actually doing semantic analysis, where you like running the content of the website through the large language models and reducing it to the semantic vector meanings of what's being said, and
Yeah.
then finding the patterns in there. And prior to the model context protocol, I had to build tool chains for my colleagues that they then had to learn how to use, and they could only give very precise inputs and only get very precise outputs.
Yep.
And now with model context protocol, it's so cool. It came out and the formatting wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. And I said, hey, can you just change the formatting to be this? And it was like, oh, let me rewrite that Python script for you.
Wow. So it's not just a college intern, but it's an excited college intern.
Yeah,
They want to
you
produce.
notice the tone of voice that I ascribed to it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's beautiful. Well, that truly is a step in the progression that we've all been looking to see. So it's cool to see that MCP. And it's also cool to see how you're using it, and the way that you're leveraging that for your client work at open source. So thanks for sharing that, because that is
Yeah,
that's
my pleasure.
phenomenal. Yeah, really amazing work. Well, Robert, I know you're on LinkedIn. It's a good way for people to get in touch with you if they want to have a conversation. Any other ways to get to you for talking about anything around marketing and agents and software development?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the primary social media site that I participate in. Otherwise, you can just email me at my address at robert@openstrategypartners.com. Hopefully, you can put that in the show notes, and happy to talk to anybody who's curious about what we're doing and how they can use it too. We've also built a model context protocol server. I'll send you the link. If you've got Claude Desktop or another LLM client that is MCP capable, then you could give ours a try. It does things like uses our nomenclature of editing codes to review your content and give you tips on how to improve it. It'll actually give you the suggestions on how to improve it. It'll like show you at a sentence level, replace this sentence with that sentence, and you can like compare word by word for crispness or no FUD, or we've got a whole bunch of very house internal editing codes that we use. It also has an algorithm in it that'll take a text and make a product positioning matrix for you. So some really useful tools in there.
Yeah.
And it's fun to use them in the context of a model context protocol, because it's really just doing the work for you. And of course, you can take the work product and make it your own beyond that, but like it's getting you to the 80 to 90% level just like that.
Well, it's amazing. How long do you think it's going to be until somebody like me can use it, where I don't have to download Python and do all that gymnastics?
Stay tuned. We're working on something.
All right. Well, you let me know when you're ready to release it, and we'll have you back on to talk about it, because I'd love to be one of the beta testers.
Sounds great. Happy to have you do it.
All right, Robert. Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for sharing this great innovation and for the great work that you're doing to keep technology moving forward and to tell good stories.
Thank you.
All right.
It was a pleasure.
Yep. Hang out for me for a second while I close it up. Well, this has been a great episode, and we get to see some cutting edge, as of today, type of technology applied to automations and the AI agentification. Appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you again real soon.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.